morning, Mick. How are you?
I'm good, Karina. Good to speak to you. Sorry, I'm not there in person in London.
Thank you so much for taking the time out to catch up with me today. Lots to chat through. Really exciting time, obviously, for Glasgow Caledonian University. Lots going on. And yeah, I think maybe if you could start off just by giving us a little bit of a background about yourself. Obviously, how long you've been in your role as digital engagement head of at GCU. Yeah, if you could just give us a bit of a background, what drew you to that and how you ended up in the higher education sector.
Yeah, of course. Well, I'm head of digital engagement at Glasgow Caledonian University. We've something like 22,000 students at the university. I've been there for 2 years and 8 months. My goodness, how time flies. I have a bit of a sort of, varied background, like a lot of people these days. Started off in journalism and then really got into digital at the BBC News website. That was really the catalyst for me to move into digital more fully. With various organizations, both public sector, private sector. But previous to this job, I was working at, for example, the Scottish Qualifications Authority. I moved to, we'll just call it GCU. I started with them on the 1st of April, 2020, which is just as the lockdown was happening. And had managed to hightail it out of, I was on holiday in Buenos Aires. Managed to hightail it out of Buenos Aires and managed to start the job. And it was all a bit strange. I don't know if you've ever seen that picture of Cillian Murphy in 28 Days Later, where he's walking through London. The campus felt a bit like that at the time, where there just wasn't a soul. I went in, picked up a laptop, and it was like, you're running a team of 16 people, designers, digital developers, content producers, and trying to obviously maintain services that are existing, but also at the same time bring forward plans for a new website program, which we're now into, and obviously proud to say that we launched in the spring of this year with the GCU main website up and running. So we made it through the pandemic, and we working in partnership with yourselves. And now we're on to phase 2 of that, plus London, our London campus integration. So it's all moving forward. And I have basically structured the team in terms of three work streams of the design and interactive design, development and content. So that's very much the way we work. And obviously, we're looking to develop our capabilities and crucially our partnerships, and Squiz are the biggest partner that we have for that. So so things are moving forward well. There's always bumps in the road, but yeah, we're moving forward, and as to say, progress on London has been great. So really good.
So, it's been quite a journey that we've been on together, and I know you worked with Squiz in a previous life as well, which is, you've probably seen a few iterations of us over the years, initially starting off at GCU as just a funnelback only customer. So, we purely worked with you on a search basis, and then obviously, like you mentioned, going live with the new site in May of this year. Can you tell us a little bit more about, I guess, the just the overall digital transformation journey that GCU have been on over the last few years? And I guess what were some of those main drivers for moving your CMS to a new platform, and I guess specifically looking at Squiz for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're absolutely right. So in terms of funnelback, that was a kind of trigger point for me when I found that out. I was really pleasantly surprised, because I'd worked for ICAS, the Institute of Chartered Accountants for Scotland, and we'd had a really successful digital transformation there working with Squiz. That was in Edinburgh. That was a few years ago. So when we were looking at, basically the website and the technologies that GCU had were really clunky, very difficult to use, hadn't been updated in quite a long time. So I had to put together a business proposal to look at something which fed into, we did have a bit of an advantage in some ways, because we did have some devolved publishing going on within the schools and departments. What we really wanted to do was to grow that significantly. so that people were owning their content much more. Crucially, were owning their processes online. So that was very much factored into the business proposal that I put together. That went to the executive board of the university, who approved it, and then it was a question of going through the tender process and Squiz with the winners on that. So, and I have to say, I think we've got more than 100 Matrix users throughout the university now, and I think the pace of change has to some extent has taken me by surprise a bit, pleasantly. And I think that's all down to the team as well, in terms of how they've worked with colleagues, but also down to the technology. Making it much simpler, having simpler templates, having a good workflow system in place, a really solid workflow system in place for administration there and governance. And we've got it's a full fat project in terms of governance, accessibility, all of that. And so the change program has been really good. It's not easy, and not everybody buys into it, but we're certainly moving forward, and we're moving forward with Squiz. And I think we're very much, with our eyes on the DXP and how we can look to evolve that, in doing some of the scoping for this project. Went to speak to Ulster, my old university, and looking at some of their transformation work, and it was really very exciting to see that. So really pleased with it. And we've done things alongside this, which it's not like blowing your trumpet, but sometimes you have to take a wee back foot, because you're in it all the time, and then you go, "Craig, the team did that," and they did. We had a full accessibility audit from the Cabinet Office, which came toddling along right as we're moving from the old site to the new site, with loads of problems with the old site. And we said, "Look, we're moving to our new site soon." Largely, and I really remember that was one of the real highlights of working with Squiz on that backlog and getting that sorted out. That was just absolutely remarkable. So we got that done, and that was a biggie. That was the sort of public sector audit that's the Cabinet Office have been doing. So alongside all that, there's been all these other paths and journeys that we've been going through together just to do things, and that's been quite great, really.
Yeah, and one thing you mentioned as you were chatting there is that it's not easy, and I think like that, it takes a special partnership to work through it, because it can get tough. And I guess on your overall digital transformation journey that you've been through, have you had to make many compromises, or has there been any reality checks that you've had to experience in trying to achieve those overarching goals that you set for yourselves?
Without a doubt, I think sometimes being an optimist and always wanting to think the best, sometimes you're like, oh god, you will get people who will talk the talk and that old cheesy sort of, but will not walk the walk. And so you've got to bring people with you. And I think as well, a huge amount of support within the university, but still, sometimes things can be, depends who you're working with. There's always the early adopters, and then there's people behind. So there's things there. And I think one of the other things is, I know we talked about things you would do differently. Obviously the pandemic came and hit us like a train. And, it was, from an individual personal perspective for people, it was really, really hard. People, we've lost loved ones, and people have been really ill, and it's been frightening. But the remarkable thing was people working through that. In some ways, the team I had only just started using Teams, collaborative technology. Fortunately, yes, but I had experience of it. But it was amazing how quickly people adopted to that. I think one of the things for me, one of the lessons is, and it's all very well with retrospect, but was looking at how other people were doing things in that environment, in that space. How were other people doing digital, or how were they coping with everything? And I know it was very hard, because we're all just trying to keep the lights on to a large extent. But I think, that would be one of the things. I think to have that we haven't done it. We should do it, lessons learned, and go, how could we work better? How could we work better ourselves? How could we work better in communication with our partners to do things? Because it was really quite a unique set of circumstances, and you almost have to pinch yourself. But I do think the technology really helped us a massive amount. And I actually think some of it, because obviously you're a very international organization, that sort of, bringing the borders down in terms of talking to your folk, whether they're in Poland or Australia, has been fantastic and a real big help to us. Why would we do things any differently going forward? So yeah, some big lessons for us with all of that. But yeah, I do think we're moving into the sort of normalizing phase a bit more now.
Yeah, it's crazy to think back to those early days when we were doing the project all completely remote, and it was all so brand new for everybody. It was, I guess we almost learned it together, which was crazy to look back on and think about. Are there any other, I guess, just building on that, are there any other insights that you've gained about how to handle what we call the aspiration gap? So that's, between the promise of digital and actually the reality of achieving that, because we know the achieving part, it's hard, it can be tough, and it takes a lot of communication and working together over communication sometimes. But yeah, is there anything else there in terms of that aspiration gap that you've learned or you've seen over the course of the last couple of years?
I think the communication thing is absolutely crucial, and making sure that you're having that communication. And whilst it might seem sometimes, so we've had a working group from all the schools and departments, while sometimes trying to keep that as focused as possible, and sometimes people are disengaged and they've got stuff going on and their teams chats. But it's really important to have that, and it's really important to have a vision and a destination in terms of where you want them to go. And I think that's the thing that we're really wanting to push on with now is, ultimately, crucially for us, the student experience, like everyone else in the HE sector, or FE or wherever, the customer experience, bottom line, but also particularly for colleagues, because, I think now, because digital has really caught hold now, document sharing and all that was the nirvana before, but it's now the norm, and making sure that business practice follows that. And so I think in terms of having that clear vision, I've got some plans for next year, which are very much around the student experience in terms of how we flip that in its head a bit and search is a massive part of that. Funnel back will play a really big part of that. Again, funnel back and its usage now with our course module catalog, that bit of work's already done for phase 2. So it's really around about the technologies, and I think as well, the ambitions that we should really have are around about AI and integrating that and going down the app mode trail much more. To be honest, we're still producing. My team are still producing paper prospectuses. Because there's still a business need for those, but it's finding ways to reduce that. The from a sustainability point of view, from an effectiveness, from a reach point of view. But they're still there at open days, open nights, and things like that. So we need to be thinking about that, and got, I think, some exciting plans for how we're going to do that. I think from going to some of the nights with kids and seeing what they're looking for at school level, and then trying to think, right, okay, well, actually, are we going about this the right way with things like search? And I don't think we are. So we need to be much more personalized with that. I know everybody always says it, but we really do need to go down that route.
And is there any, I guess, kind of key or top trends in HE that you're looking out for? I know you've obviously mentioned the student experience, online perspective. Is there anything else that you're watching out for or you're reading about that you can expect or we can expect to see in 2023?
I think in terms of trends, I think what's driving a lot at the moment is that there's much more of a, let's say, a competition on in the UK, or the UK and Ireland market for students. You know, there are trends that are really sort of taking us by surprise a little bit. Some of it is like, you know, increasingly international sort of non-European students coming in, massive numbers. Obviously Brexit has had an impact, but also I think as well, a lot of the universities, home domestic market, and you've got a lot more of the more established universities now looking at those markets much more. And there isn't a, you know, there's a duty, or there's a corporate social responsibility aspect to that in terms of, you know, widening participation and access. And I think that's something that we need to be looking at, all of us really, you know, extending our reach. I know we all, you know, we've got social and we've got this and that, but it's widening that reach. And also as well as that, I think we've got to be thinking about retention in terms of students as well still. I know that, you know, that was a particular challenge during the pandemic, because, you know, students were getting, you know, a lot of the experience was online, it wasn't great and all of that, but it's trying to keep students sort of engaged and that sort of thing. And just being generally flexible. You know, there's a lot more students wanting to take a year out before they start the gap year thing. So, but I do think absolutely, you know, in terms of the opportunities that exist. I mean, introducing AI into registration is a must. You know, to reduce the sort of, you know, the workload on colleagues. You know, to bring that down and make it much more streamlined. And, you know, some universities are doing some amazing work with that. And you may have a few at SquizSync, I'm not sure, but, you know, that's a fantastic piece of work. And I, you know, the work that at Scottish Qualifications Authority, we had I worked on the redevelopment of their exams timetable app, the study skills app, and they're just amazing. And Alexa skills for those as well, so that, you know, kids really, like my kids, really didn't have to get out of bed to find out what the modern studies exam was, you know. So there's lots of assistive technologies and things that we need to be looking at. We just need to pick the ones absolutely at the center of what we want to be about next year. Funnel back, search, and personalization are absolute musts for us around about what we're going to be looking at. Amazing.
So yeah, so many things there in terms of trends, lots of exciting stuff. Sounds like it's going to be a busy 2023. I guess my final question, kind of related to that, is what do you believe will be the game changer for you and GCU next year?
I do think that I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but it is around about that, you know, that personalization and that search, and that's going to really, you know, I mean, you know, that it's there's imperatives, business imperatives for that, but it's really around about the customer, and it's around about, you know, how we're going to deliver a service. I think the other thing as well is one of the really big things about Matrix that I love is visibility. Our last content management system was, you know, you couldn't find stuff, but through the detailed audit and the continuing audit that we're doing with yourselves, and you know, streamlining our content. You know, we're saying we've got, you know, we might have 4 different contacts pages. You know, being able to start, for me, is a revolution in itself. You know, is to just streamline, to continue to bring our page count down. I mean, we got down from something like 14,000 down to, you know, 5,000. And you're getting streamlining that information and the workflow. But the other thing as well is bringing forward the workflow. We're moving from basic level matrix editing now to advanced user levels. We've got teams doing that. So the real dream ticket for me is when we start to see, teams of colleagues who really know their stuff with this. We have drop-in sessions on once a week with colleagues as well for Matrix. They come in person, and we work with them. We're running Q&As, we're planning Q&As and stuff like that with some. So we're trying to build a community around it and around the technology. And I think that for me as well is there's the external facing, but the internal facing sort of revolution and evolution that we're trying to look to.
Yeah, no, I think the way that your team have adopted Matrix has been absolutely incredible to watch. So some of them I think might know better than me. Well, certainly more than me. But anyway, they've done a smashing job, and sometimes I feel like they don't even need us sometimes when we're doing new projects and some of that phase 2 work, because they hit the ground running and they've been doing a fantastic job. So Thanks. Kudos to them. But anyway, Mick, thank you so much for taking the time out with me. And looking forward to 2023 and achieving some of those amazing goals and aspirations. So thank you so much for your time, and I'll catch up with you soon. Thank you.